My name is Delilah Shaw. I'm 29 years old, and my birthday wish came true in a way I never expected. It started with purple dahlias. If you'd seen us from the outside, me and my boyfriend Ethan, you'd probably think we were one of those solid, grown up couples. We met at a craft brewery opening through a mutual friend. He laughed at my terrible beer puns. I liked that he could keep up when I started talking about networked surveillance systems and access control protocols, instead of glazing over like most people do when you mention cabling. I run a physical security consultancy, high-end systems for businesses and expensive homes. Cameras, smart locks, audit logs, the whole invisible skeleton of safety no one thinks about until something goes wrong. I started the company 5 years ago with one corporate client and a hand-me-down van. Now I've got a small team, a steady roster of corporate contracts, and a house of my own just outside the city. Not bad for a girl who went to school with more tools in her backpack than makeup. Ethan is 27, works in marketing at a tech company downtown, and has an apartment right in the middle of everything. Coffee shops, co-working spaces, yoga studios, people who wear shoes that cost more than my drill set. For almost 2 years, most nights we ended up at one of our places. His place was good for convenience, mine for quiet. On paper, we looked great together. Then there was Kayla. I heard about her on day one. Ethan mentioned her casually, like you'd mention a college roommate. We dated for 3 years, he said the night we met, twirling his beer. She wanted different things. I wanted to settle down. She wasn't ready. It was amicable. Standard breakup story. Fine. Everyone has a past. What wasn't standard was how much of our present still had her name in it. Kayla's new job, Kayla's vacation photos, Kayla's family drama. At first, I wrote it off. I'm not the jealous type. I spend my days installing systems that show me what's actually happening. Feelings don't change facts. Some people stay friends with their exes. Not my style, but whatever. I told myself it just meant Ethan was emotionally mature. Around 6 months into our relationship, Ethan's company needed to upgrade their security infrastructure. That's my language. I offered to help, and he arranged a meeting with his boss. I walked in with my laptop, my portfolio, and my I know what I'm doing heels. We hammered out a service contract, and I installed their system. Another client for my company, more proof that my life was on track. As we got more serious, Ethan started helping with some of my marketing. Nothing official, no contracts, no invoices, just suggestions on copy, feedback on my website, throwing together a campaign idea over takeout on my couch. I trusted him in my house, in my business, in my life. By the time my birthday rolled around this year, I thought things were good. Not perfect, but good. Let me plan everything, Ethan insisted a few weeks before. You always organize everyone else's security and schedules. You deserve to just show up. I remember smiling at him from across my kitchen island. Okay, surprise me. He did, just not the way I hoped. He booked a reservation at an upscale restaurant I'd mentioned once, months ago, in passing. Small table for 8. Our closest friends, my best friend Tom and his wife, my business partner Jared, 2 other couple friends, and us. The day before the dinner, I was at my dining table, half buried in project estimates, when Ethan spoke up like he was commenting on the weather. Oh, by the way, I invited Kayla too. My fingers froze on the keyboard. Kayla? Your ex-girlfriend? He nodded, scrolling on his phone. Yeah, is that okay? She's friends with some of the people who will be there. It'd be weird not to include her. There was a long pause, the kind that stretches just enough to make the air feel heavy. I could feel the old version of myself. The one who always tries to be cool and chill and low maintenance, starting to say, sure, no problem. Instead, I asked, is it just as a friend? He looked up then, finally, as if only now realizing this might be a thing. Del, yes, we're just friends now. You know that. I thought you weren't the jealous type. There it was, the soft, polite accusation. I'm not jealous, I said, which was true. Jealousy is a fear of what you don't know. I was more worried about what I already suspected. But I swallowed that down and said, if you say it's just as a friend, fine. It's one night. Something in my chest felt off, like a hairline crack in a wall you pretend not to see. The night of the dinner, the restaurant was warm and low lit, the kind of place where every candle is a little too flattering. Our table for 8 was set near the back with a perfect view of the room, and technically, I was the guest of honor. Everyone arrived on time. We ordered drinks. The conversation flowed. We were waiting on one person. Kayla. She showed up 20 minutes late, like the main character entering a movie halfway through. The doors parted, and she walked in with that, "I know I'm being watched" confidence. Dark hair in effortless waves, dress that said, "I just threw this on," and also, "I know exactly what this looks like." But it wasn't her entrance that made my stomach twist. It was the bouquet in her hands. Purple dahlias. Not for me, the birthday girl, for Ethan. I glanced at him automatically. His face lit up like someone had just turned on a spotlight. He stood, arms already half open. "These are for you," Kayla said, handing the bouquet across the table, across my place setting, across my birthday, to him. Happy spring. It was October. Ethan laughed, that soft, familiar laugh I used to think was just for me. "Purple dahlias," he said. "It's sweet that you still remember what I like." The table went quiet in that way that's louder than shouting. Forks paused. Tom's wife shot me a look that was equal parts sympathy and "Are you okay?" Jared stared down at his glass, jaw tight, like he was physically holding back a comment. Kayla finally turned my way. "Hey, Delilah, happy birthday," she said, as if she hadn't just stepped on the cake before we even saw it. She slid into the seat directly across from Ethan, perfectly positioned to meet his eyes all night. "Thanks," I replied. My voice sounded oddly clear in my own ears, like it was coming through one of my own speakers. Kayla never even looked for my reaction to the flowers. Why would she? The intended audience was already glowing. Dinner went on, or at least it pretended to. Kayla and Ethan fell into inside jokes, little memories from their 3-year relationship that no one else at the table understood, stories that started with, "Remember when we," and jabbed at the present like a fork in a steak. I sipped my wine and watched. It didn't feel like a love triangle. It felt like a stage I hadn't realized I wasn't the star of. Waiters came and went. Plates were cleared. At some point, Ethan's hand brushed Kayla's as he reached for the bread, and they both laughed like the world's most obvious cliché. I heard myself ask a safe, neutral question about someone's job to fill the silence. My body was on autopilot. My brain, however, was cataloging every look, every slip, every just a friend moment that felt more like an encore performance. Then came the cake. The lights around our table dimmed slightly, and a waiter appeared with a small chocolate cake covered in candles. Everyone sang. Ethan finally shifted his attention to me, slipping an arm around my shoulders for the first time that evening, like a man remembering his lines halfway through the play. I stared at the candles, their tiny flames flickering in front of me. "Make a wish," someone said. I looked at Ethan, at Kayla, at the flowers sitting in a vase the staff had brought over, placed right between their plates like a shared secret. I didn't wish for love, or for them to break up, or for some dramatic movie-style scene. I wished for clarity, for self-respect, for whatever needed to happen next to happen, so I could stop pretending I didn't see what was already in front of me. I took a breath, blew out the candles, and felt something inside me extinguish with them. Then, before anyone could clap or cheer, I stood up. I folded my napkin and set it gently on the table. "Thanks for coming, everyone," I said, my voice steady. "I need some air." Ethan's arm slipped off my shoulder. "You're leaving? We haven't even cut the cake." "I've lost my appetite," I replied. I let my eyes flick just once to Kayla's flowers. "Kayla can have my slice. She seems to be getting everything else you like tonight anyway." The silence that followed was absolute. I turned and walked away from the table, from the restaurant, from the version of myself who tolerated being treated like a placeholder at her own birthday. Outside, the night air wrapped around me, cool and real. I didn't feel angry, just done. Like a door had clicked shut somewhere deep in the house of my life. I pulled out my phone, requested a ride, and as I waited, I did what I do best. I thought about systems, about logs, about cameras that never forget, because my business has always taught me one thing. You can lie to people, you can lie to yourself, but you can't lie to the record. And my house has a very, very good record. The Uber ride home took 15 minutes. I remember that because I watched every second tick by on the little map instead of reading Ethan's messages. They started before I even left the restaurant parking lot. "Where did you go?" "Del, this is ridiculous. It's your birthday dinner. Kayla is just a friend. Come back and we can talk about this." Each text popped up brighter than the last, like my phone thought urgency equaled sincerity. I muted the conversation and stared out the window instead. City lights blurred past. Apartments stacked on apartments, other people's stories layered behind glass and curtains. Somewhere in one of those buildings, A woman was blowing out candles and actually being celebrated instead of watching her boyfriend praise the taste of his ex. Good for her. When the car pulled up to my house, I thanked the driver and stepped out into the darkness of my quiet street. My front porch light clicked on automatically as I approached, triggered by the motion sensor I'd installed myself. My systems always greeted me honestly. No forced smiles, no excuses, no, "you're overreacting." I unlocked the door, kicked off my heels by habit, and stood in the entryway for a moment listening. The hum of the refrigerator, the soft whir of the HVAC, the low, constant tick of the world moving on, whether my relationship survived or not. My phone buzzed in my hand. Ethan again. "I'm serious. You're blowing this out of proportion. Kayla and I are friends. That's it. Can you stop being dramatic and come back?" I almost laughed. Dramatic. That was a good word for a man who let another woman bring him flowers to his girlfriend's birthday dinner. I walked down the hallway toward my office. The glow of my monitor, still in sleep mode, felt like a beacon. "Fine," I murmured. "Let's see what's dramatic and what's just recorded." I woke up my computer, opened the control panel for my home security system, and logged in. The interface came up with its familiar dashboard. Camera feeds, access logs, alerts. Clean, efficient, brutally honest. I started with the logs. One of the features I always push my clients to pay for is detailed access tracking. My own house has the full package: every door unlock, every code used, every timestamp preserved. I filtered by dates. Overnight trips, out-of-town conferences, days I knew for a fact I was gone, because I still had the boarding passes in a folder on my desktop. Denver, Houston, Portland. My work took me away often enough that if someone wanted to use my house like a hotel, there were opportunities. For a while, the logs looked normal. My code. The occasional cleaner's temporary code. Door open, door closed. Nothing weird. Then a pattern began to emerge. My eyes narrowed. On a Thursday 3 months ago, I was in Denver that week, installing a system at a corporate campus. There was an entry I didn't recognize. Code used 5953, front door unlocked. 7:14 p.m., front door locked. 1:02 a.m. I leaned back in my chair, staring at the numbers. My brain did the quiet math it always does with numbers and keypads. Old habit. 5 on a phone keypad is JKL. 9 is WXYZ. 5 again. 3 is DEF. Not a perfect spelling, but my mind went to the person who needed a code at my house and wouldn't dare use her own name completely. Kayla. 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 Enough overlap that the intention was obvious once you know what you're looking for. I clicked over to the camera footage for that day, my fingers suddenly very steady. The outside camera feed came up. The timestamp at 7:13 p.m. showed my driveway. Empty. At 7:14, a familiar car pulled in. Kayla stepped out, alone, straightening her hair in the reflection of the window like she'd done this before. She walked up to my front door, looked around once, then punched in a code I couldn't see, but the system had already recorded. The lock light flashed green. She walked into my home. A few seconds later, the entryway camera caught Ethan stepping into frame from the living room, wearing one of his t-shirts from my dresser. The way he greeted her, it wasn't how you greet just a friend. It was intimate, casual, the kind of touch that comes from repetition. I watched just long enough to confirm what I already knew, then hit pause. I didn't need to see more. I didn't need to watch them disappear down the hallway toward my bedroom, or see the way somebody probably knocked my favorite framed print slightly askew on the wall. The point had been made. I scrubbed through more dates. Each time I was traveling, there it was again. Code 5953. Kayla's car in my driveway. Ethan's hands on her waist, his mouth on hers, his betrayal captured in perfect, crisp resolution. The system had seen everything. My phone buzzed again on the desk. "Delilah, answer me." "I don't know what's going on with you right now, but this isn't fair." I exhaled slowly and opened the settings panel. First, I revoked every access code except my own. Ethan's personal code, gone. Any temporary codes I'd given him for convenience, deleted. The 5953 code? I didn't just delete it. I flagged it with a bright red note in the logs for my own records. Unauthorized code created without homeowner consent. Then I changed the main alarm code and the admin password, just in case. It felt like finally locking a door I'd left open out of misplaced trust. When I was done, I scrolled back to the camera timeline and took a screenshot of one image. Kayla entering my front door, Key code panel glowing beside her hand, timestamp clearly visible from 3 weeks ago when I knew I was in Denver. I pulled up Ethan's messages and attached the screenshot. No long explanation, no paragraphs. Just one line. I was in Denver this night. You weren't alone. I hit send. His reply came almost immediately. Delilah, I can explain. I didn't open whatever came next. My curiosity had already been answered by something that never lies, recorded data. Instead, I flipped over to my email. There was another connection to Ethan I needed to sever, the professional one. I drafted a message to his boss, the one I'd negotiated with when I installed their company's system. Hi, Andrew. I hope you're doing well. I'm writing to let you know that due to a personal conflict of interest, I'll be assigning a different account manager from my team to handle your service needs going forward. There will be no disruption in service or support. This is purely a restructuring on our side. I've copied my operations director, Megan, who will coordinate the transition and be your primary contact. Best, Delilah Shaw owner, Shaw Secure Systems. Polite, professional, clean. I CC'd Megan, making everything official and businesslike, leaving no room for Ethan to accuse me of mixing personal drama into his work life. The conflict existed because he'd brought personal choices into my professional one, not the other way around. Once the email was sent, I opened my messaging app and found Mark, my property manager and an old friend from college. 3 months ago, I'd bought a condo downtown as an investment. Great location, good numbers, long-term play. It just so happened to be in the same building as Ethan's apartment. He lived in Unit 3B. My rental was 3F, down the hall. I'd told Ethan I owned a rental property. I'd never told him where. A week earlier, my tenant had reported what sounded like a minor water issue in the bathroom ceiling. Mark had been in the process of scheduling a plumber, but timing with the tenant had been tricky. Now, a different kind of timing clicked in my head. I typed, "Hey Mark, tenant in 3F at Parkview. Mentioned water damage in the bathroom ceiling. Any update on that? If not, can you get a plumber in there ASAP? I'm worried it could be a pipe issue that might affect adjacent units too." He replied a few minutes later. "Got it. Plumber is scheduled for tomorrow morning. I'll let building management know. We should probably check neighboring units as a precaution." Perfect, I whispered. And not because I wanted anyone's home flooded. I wanted the truth about the building's bones, just like I wanted the truth about my relationships. I leaned back in my chair and finally let myself feel everything. The betrayal. Not just the cheating, but the planning. Watching Ethan and Kayla on my cameras on nights I thought he was home watching Netflix alone. Realizing he had created a secret code for her, a way into my house, my sanctuary, without asking me, without even telling me. That hurt more than anything. If he'd wanted to leave, he could have left. If he wanted Kayla, he could have had an honest breakup conversation. Instead, he'd chosen to turn my own security system into a silent accomplice. My phone buzzed again on the desk, relentless. I didn't pick it up. I logged out of the control panel, closed the laptop, and sat there in the quiet of my office. The house felt different now. Not because of what it had seen, but because of what I finally allowed myself to see. I wasn't crying. I wasn't screaming. I wasn't throwing anything. I just felt resolved. I brushed a bit of imaginary dust off my desk and stood. On my way to my bedroom, I paused in the hallway and looked up at one of the cameras. Just a small, black dome in the corner. Most people forget they're there after a while. "Good work," I told it softly. "You did your job." I crawled into bed alone that night and, for the first time in a long time, slept deeply. I didn't know yet that a slow leak behind a bathroom wall, in a condo I barely thought about, was already spreading through the building. Or that in a few days, broken pipes and broken trust would collide in a way that made Ethan finally understand what it means when the walls you rely on give out. All I knew was this. I had my proof. I had my boundaries back, and the cameras never forgot what he tried to pretend never happened. I woke up the next morning to sunlight cutting across my room like someone had drawn a clean, bright line between the life I lived yesterday and the one I was stepping into now. No panic, no second guessing, just clarity. I checked my phone only to see what time it was. The cluster of notifications from Ethan was still there. Messages, missed calls, voicemails. But they felt like they belonged to a version of me who didn't exist anymore. I ignored them. Instead, I rolled out of bed, tied my hair up, and made coffee in the quiet kitchen of a house that finally felt like mine again. Halfway through my mug, my phone lit up with a name I did care about. Tom. "Hey," I answered. He didn't bother with a greeting. "Dell, what the hell happened last night after you left?" Because That was the most awkward dinner of my life. I pressed the phone between my shoulder and ear while I rinsed out my mug. I'm sure it was. No, like nuclear awkward. Kayla, acted like it was some reunion special, and Ethan looked like he forgot he was supposed to be celebrating you, not starring in a flashback episode. I let out a small breath. I figured as much. After you left, Tom continued, the silence was so loud I swear I heard the candles burn down. Kayla and Ethan left together about 20 minutes later. Exactly the information I expected. Not surprising, just confirming. I sat down at the counter. I already handled it. What does that mean? I hesitated only for effect. Tom knows me well enough to expect precision, not drama. It means I checked my cameras. He was silent for maybe half a second before whispering, "Oh, Dell. I have footage going back months. Access logs, her car in my driveway, her using a code I didn't authorize." You're kidding. I wish I were. Tom swore under his breath. Delilah, I'm so sorry. I'm not, I replied. I'd rather know. We talked for another minute, then hung up. I didn't need comforting. I needed momentum. And right on cue, that momentum came at 11:45 a.m. in the form of a phone call from Mark, my property manager. Dell, plumber just called me, he said. You're going to want to hear this. Okay, what's going on? So, the bathroom ceiling in 3F? It wasn't a small leak. They opened part of the wall. Turns out a pipe's been silently leaking inside the shared wall for months. My brows rose. Shared wall with which unit? 3B, he replied. Ethan's unit. Of course. Mark continued. When the plumber opened up more of the wall, the trapped water basically burst out. A lot of water. Both units took damage. The building maintenance supervisor already declared both apartments temporarily uninhabitable until repairs are done. Could be 3 to 4 weeks. I closed my eyes for a beat. A deep, involuntary exhale slipped out of me. Not satisfaction, not revenge. Just the eerie feeling of life clicking into place. The truth has a way of leaking through even behind walls. Thanks, Mark, I said. Let me know what the building needs from me. You got it. The moment we hung up, my phone buzzed again. Ethan. I let it go to voicemail. Then another call. And another. Finally, a text came through that I knew he sent mid-panic. What did you do? There's water everywhere. The plumber says it's coming from the unit down the hall. The whole bathroom ceiling collapsed. Please call me back. It almost made me laugh. As if I controlled water pressure. As if I had engineered the structural decay of a pipe 6 months ago. I didn't create the leak. But the timing? The timing was poetry I couldn't have written better myself. I waited until evening before finally picking up one of his calls. He didn't say hello. Where am I supposed to go? He demanded, breathless, panicked, accusatory, everything except accountable. I leaned against my kitchen counter, watching the last of the sunset bleed out across my backyard. I hear Kayla has a very nice place, I said calmly. He exhaled sharply. Delilah, be serious. I'm asking where I'm supposed to... Yes, I cut in. I know about everything. There was silence. Not empty silence. Weighted silence. The kind where you hear all the lies collapsing inside someone's skull. Everything what? He tried. The cameras, I replied. The footage. Kayla using the access code. The nights you invited her into my home while I was gone. He sucked in a breath. A sound between surprise and guilt. Dell, I was going to tell you. When? My voice didn't rise. It didn't need to. Calm truth is sharper than rage. After the birthday dinner where she gave you flowers? Or after I found the code she created, 5953, spelling her name? That wasn't... He stopped. His mouth seemed to be catching up to the fact that I had evidence, not suspicions. It didn't mean anything. It was one mistake. Ethan. I let out a soft, humorless breath. You've been sleeping with her in my house for months. That's not a mistake. That's a campaign. He didn't argue. He couldn't. Finally, quietly, he said, Fine. You know what? Kayla and we belong together anyway. She never stopped loving me. The irony of him saying that after her bringing flowers to his girlfriend's birthday was almost too absurd to believe. Great, I said. Congratulations. Dealt. I've already packed your things from my house, I continued. They're in a box in the garage. Text me when you want to pick them up. I'll leave them outside, and you no longer have access to my business accounts. I already informed your boss. You're ruining my life, he snapped. All of this over one misstep? One misstep doesn't involve months of entry logs, I replied. You made several decisions. I just made one. I hung up, blocked his number, placed my phone face down on the counter. My home was calm again, still honest. I walked down the hallway and straightened a framed print that had been crooked for months. I knew exactly when it got that way now. Funny how some details only make sense afterward. Later that night, I crawled into bed alone. I wasn't lonely. I was free. Somewhere across the city, Ethan and Kayla were probably celebrating their sudden reunion in her apartment, believing life had handed them exactly what they wanted. Meanwhile, behind the walls of a downtown condo, water damage was spreading in long, slow lines, revealing the truth of poor foundations, emotional and structural. And in the morning, they would both wake up and realize just how much was collapsing. 3 days after the pipe burst, while I was in the middle of a meeting with a corporate client, my phone started buzzing nonstop. Ethan again, except now his messages weren't angry. They were frantic. "Delilah, please, I need to talk to you. This is serious. Can you please answer?" "Kayla isn't picking up. I don't know where else to go." I silenced my phone and continued my presentation on incident response protocols. The timing made me want to laugh, not out of cruelty, but out of the sharp, undeniable truth. Life has a perfect sense of irony. When the meeting ended, I walked to my car and checked the rest of his texts. "They said my apartment is unlivable for 4 weeks. I can't stay with Kayla anymore. Please just answer the phone." Then, "What did you do to the building? This isn't funny." That last one made me snort softly. As if I could bend water pipes to my will. I pocketed my phone, drove home, and didn't reply. The next 48 hours unfolded like the world had finally decided to show Ethan who he'd really chosen. It was Tom who delivered the breaking news. I was loading groceries into my car when he texted, "You see Instagram lately?" I hadn't, so I opened the app. And there it was. A smiling photo of Ethan with another woman, not Kayla. A pretty blonde leaning into him at a mountain cabin. Captioned, "Weekend escape with my favorite person. Hashtag no filter. Hashtag just happy." I stared at the screen for a second. Then I laughed. Actually laughed. Not bitterly, not vengefully, just in disbelief at how predictable Ethan was when no one was watching. Kayla had been replaced before the drywall in her hallway even finished dripping. I didn't feel triumph. I didn't feel sympathy either. Mostly, I felt relief. The universe had taken the wheel and parked his karma right where it belonged. That evening, fate handed me the second update. I ran into Sarah, a mutual friend, at a brewery. The moment she saw me, she rushed over like someone delivering a breaking news headline. "Oh my God, Delilah, I've been meaning to talk to you," she said. "Have you heard what happened with Ethan and Kayla?" I raised an eyebrow. "I saw Instagram." "No, before that," she said, lowering her voice. "Kayla kicked him out." I blinked. "After the flooding?" Sarah nodded eagerly. "Yeah. He moved into her place when his got condemned for repairs. Thought they were finally meant to be, now that you were out of the picture." I almost choked on my drink. "He said that?" "Oh, absolutely." She leaned closer. But then Kayla's ex came back into the picture, 3 days after Ethan moved in, and Ethan was told to pack his things by the end of the night. I paused. "Kayla's ex-girlfriend?" No, she corrected quickly. "Her ex-boyfriend from last year. The one she always said she was completely done with. He came back around and, well, apparently she wasn't over him." I let that sink in. Ethan had gambled his relationship with me. Stable, loyal, good. For someone who cheated on him before and after, and right in front of me. That wasn't just a bad choice. It was a pattern. Sarah sighed. "He's been staying in an extended stay hotel near the highway. Costs a fortune, and his paycheck barely covers it." I stirred my drink with the little wooden stick. "That's unfortunate." "Unfortunate?" Sarah snorted. "Del, it's karmic. You gave him everything. He threw it away, and now he's paying for it in hotel bills." I shrugged. "He made his choices." "He really messed up," she said softly. "You were good to him. Even I told him he was being stupid. Kayla was always a player." I didn't need to hear more. Some stories don't require a villain. Sometimes people ruin themselves. We chatted a bit longer before I headed home. The evening air was cool, crisp, light, the opposite of the heaviness Ethan had brought into my life. As I drove back to my quiet neighborhood, I realized something important. I didn't feel angry anymore, or hurt, or even vindicated. There was no revenge high, no satisfaction in watching someone fall apart, just peace. Because the truth about people like Ethan is simple. You don't need to destroy them. You just need to stop protecting them from their own choices. And once you do, the consequences take care of the rest. 6 months passed. Half a year since purple dahlias appeared at my birthday dinner. Half a year since I walked away from a table where I was supposed to be celebrated, only to realize I was the only one there who remembered who the celebration was for. Half a year since I stopped trying to hold together someone who had already chosen to fall apart. Life didn't just move on, it expanded. My business, Shaw Secure Systems, was thriving more than ever. I'd hired a new technician, expanded into 2 neighboring cities, and even landed a corporate campus with a 5-building contract. My operations director joked that my breakup was the best thing that ever happened to our revenue projections. Maybe she wasn't wrong. Ethan used to take up more mental bandwidth than I realized. The emotional static of his excuses, late replies, half-truths, and passive-aggressive silences had been draining me quietly, like that hidden leak in the condo wall. Once he was gone, everything felt clearer, sharper, quieter in the right ways. I went on dates here and there, nothing serious. For the first time in years, I wasn't trying to fit my life around someone else's unpredictability. I was just living on my terms. And my house? My house had become a sanctuary again. No unauthorized access codes, no secret visits, no tampered camera angles, no pretending I didn't notice small things being moved or disturbed. Just peace. One afternoon in early fall, while reviewing audit logs for a commercial client, I saw an email from an address I didn't recognize at first. When I clicked it open, I saw the signature, Ethan Cole. I exhaled once, slowly. Not with emotion, just acknowledgement. Like seeing an item you'd forgotten you donated now sitting on a thrift store shelf. The email was painfully polite. Hi, Delilah. Hope you're doing well. My apartment repairs are finally complete and I've moved back in. While unpacking, I found one of your sweatshirts in the back of my closet. Let me know if you want it back. Ethan. I stared at the email for a few seconds. Not because I missed him, not because it hurt, but because it was so small. After everything, the lies, the codes, the messages, the tears he pretended to shed, the desperate calls when he had nowhere to stay, this was what remained. A forgotten sweatshirt? The very symbol of bare minimum intimacy? I typed a reply. Short, clean, final. Hi, Ethan. You can drop it off at this location. Community Donation Center, 47th and Maple. Best, Delilah. No bitterness, no sarcasm, just reality. I hit send and closed the laptop. That night, sitting on my back porch with a cup of tea, I watched the lights in the neighborhood blink on house by house. I listened to the wind chimes next door, the soft hum of my garden lights powering on, and the distant sound of someone mowing a lawn before dusk. It struck me then how much unnecessary chaos I had once tolerated. The drama, the insecurity, the explanations, the shifting sand he called honesty. Once I stopped cushioning his choices, life simply rearranged itself in the neat, quiet way that truth always prefers. Some people imagine revenge as dramatic, elaborate schemes, destroyed reputations, scorched earth. But real revenge? It's clean. It's simple. It's choosing yourself so completely that the person who tried to diminish you becomes nothing more than background noise in your story. It's walking away with dignity when they expected you to beg. It's refusing to fight over someone who couldn't hold on to you when he had you. It's letting natural consequences unfold, uninterrupted. Water pipes burst, relationships collapse, truth leaks through walls. People return to who they truly are. And peace, true peace, fills the spaces they once occupied. Back on that night at the restaurant, when I stood in front of a cake surrounded by people who suddenly felt like strangers, I wished for one thing: clarity. Not revenge, not punishment, not karma. Just clarity. The sidewalk outside that restaurant had been cold under my heels, the air sharp in my lungs, and I remember thinking, I don't want a dramatic ending. I want the truth to show me the way out. And it did. In camera logs, in access codes, in water pipes, in Instagram posts, in a cheap hotel room someone couldn't afford, in a forgotten sweatshirt found months too late. Clarity came, and when it did, I walked away clean. Sometimes the best revenge isn't a plan at all. Sometimes the best revenge is simply living the life they tried to distract you from.